I want to tell you this morning that the joy of the Lord is your strength. I know this because God woke me at 5:30 this morning to tell me so. And I was particularly thrilled, not being a morning person. But you see, I've had a couple of rough days at work, and I really was struggling, and I lost my joy a little bit. And yesterday, I'm trying to have a day off, and Darren took me out to do some shopping, and I just couldn't quite, like I wasn't hopefully rude or anything. Maybe I was a bit, but I just couldn't get past it, right? I just was like, just really sitting under those circumstances, and I'm like, why can't I let that go? And God this morning just went, it's the joy of the Lord that's your strength. That's where my strength comes from. So I thought that was worth sharing with you this morning. Because I don't know how much time you spend pursuing happiness. I wasn't particularly happy yesterday, but I've woken this morning with the joy of the Lord, which is not the same thing. How much time do we spend pursuing happiness? Whether it's something simple like eating your favourite food or watching your favourite TV show, that thing that makes you feel good or gives you a laugh. Whether it's career acknowledgement, financial security. What are the things for you that make you happy? Is it having great holidays? Some of you are about to head off on holidays. Is that the escape? Is it hanging with friends? Is it sports? Whatever are those things that you do that make you just feel happy. If I asked each of you what you really want out of life, most of you would probably say something like, I just want to be happy. Or more often it's when we're asked that question of our kids, what do we want for our children? We don't mind what they want to do, we just want them to be happy, right? We want to have a satisfying life, a life full of joy and contentment, and yet that search for happiness so often eludes us. When people say they want to be happy, and I say to them, well, are you? They don't really know how to answer that question. Mostly they've had some happy experiences, but the happiness doesn't kind of last beyond that moment. We don't seem to have that ability for ongoing happiness in our lives. Well, this morning I'm going to tell you why, if you want to know the secret. It's in the way we pursue happiness. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be happy, but the happiness, we just shoot ourselves in the foot really by the way we pursue it. Nothing wrong with wanting to be happy. So I want you to do some exercise with me this morning. Are you ready? I thought that would be a good way to start the day. I want you to do this. Just put your hands out in front. Then I want you to do this. Just be kind to the people next to you. All right, there's some battles happening down here with our young men. All right, so this. Slowly and carefully. All right, you can put your hands down. I want to tell you, this is about happiness. This is about joy. Happiness is this. I'm going to explain that in a minute. But happiness, joy. Remember that. We'll come back to it. Happiness is essentially about a feeling. It's based on pleasurable experiences that make us feel good. So it should follow then that the greater the number of happy experiences we have, the happier we are, right? That would make sense. But somehow it doesn't seem to work that way. We only have to look at our world to know that people that seemingly have the best experiences in life still aren't happy. You see it everywhere, right? Movie stars, sports people, the people that we think, the people who are doing well in their careers, we think they should be happy, but we're not. Take, for example, the baby boomers, not to pick on them, but statistically speaking, the earning power of the baby boomers is greater than of any other previous generation. They've had more money, more leisure time, more access to sport, to travel, and to entertainment that any society has ever experienced. And yet, baby boomers have also experienced a 10-fold increase in depression rates over any other generation. How can that be? Studies by a guy named Dr. Martin Seligman, who's a happiness expert, if there is such a thing, have concluded that it is because this generation began the shift towards a focus on self. When your life becomes all about pursuing happiness, you become focused on yourself. Is this good for me? What am I getting out of it? Am I enjoying myself? Is it good? Ultimately, though, that is unfulfilling. Because the reality is, a focus on yourself and on pursuit of happy experiences doesn't produce lasting satisfaction or lasting happiness. Once the experience is over, you return to your natural state, whatever that is. And honestly, it's not just the baby boomers. The generations that have followed have also bought into that philosophy, and maybe even more so. We're taught to think that it's all about me, what works for me, what's right for me. And the prevailing view is that we should do whatever makes us feel good because it will bring us happiness. But the reality is, it doesn't. Not for any length of time, anyway. It's the life of an addict, looking for something that feels good, or at least something that takes away the pain. But it never lasts. It can't. It's just a moment. It's just an experience. And it has to end sometime. We have generations now of adrenaline junkies. Some of the things people are willing to jump off in the world just scares me stupid. They've become so numb, so desperate to feel good, that they fill their time with one terrifying experience after another just so they can feel something. The adrenaline rush that they get feels great. But as soon as the adrenaline wears off, the happiness is gone. For some people, it's about escape. Some of you are about to go on holidays, looking for happiness by escaping from the pressures of your everyday life. Some of you are escaping from work that you don't enjoy, or people who you find hard to be around. For others, the pursuit of happiness is more about wanting our lives to be under control. We think that if our life is good on paper, then we're going to be happy. If I could only have a good job or a better job, if only I had financial security, if only I had the house of my dreams, or if I could own a house, if I could just get the kids on the right track, if all my ducks were in a row, I would be happy. The truth is that none of that is actually happiness, or at least it's not the happiness we're looking for. Happiness, by definition, is only a fleeting thing. Hap, the root word for happiness, hap, comes from the word happenstance. It means good feelings that come out of what is happening. Happenstance. Because you see, happiness isn't actually meant to last. By definition, it's about something transient, something momentary. It's designed to be a feel-good moment based on something that's happened to us. And there is nothing wrong with that moment, right? You should take those moments of happiness, embrace it, suck every good bit out of it. It has its purpose, right? It's okay to feel happy. It's just that you can't build your whole life on that feeling. Enjoy it when it comes, but recognize that by definition, it's not meant to last. So then, if we're not actually looking for happiness, what are we looking for? Well, here's the secret. What we actually want is joy. Did you know that the early Salvation Army was known for its joy? There are newspaper articles written about the joy in the people of the Salvation Army. And life was pretty tough for those early Salvationists. If you read a little bit of our history, you know, they were persecuted, they had stuff thrown at them, they were considered rabble and unrespectable, but they were always joyful. There was something about them that meant they were visibly joyful regardless of the circumstances they found themselves in. Because you see, happiness is based on our circumstances, but joy comes out of our inner life, out of who we are. We can have genuine joy regardless of our circumstances, and it can last for a lifetime. The Bible teaches us that genuine, deep, lasting joy comes from being connected to Jesus properly and allowing him to produce joy in us. Just stop and think about that for a second. Genuine, deep, lasting joy comes from being properly connected to Jesus. That's not necessarily a logical connection, right? All this time we've been looking for external things, and it turns out that joy comes from something totally different than where we so often go looking for it. In John 15 that Josh read this morning, Jesus teaches us that we need to be connected to him in the same way that a branch is connected to a vine. And in through that verse, he said things like, a branch gets life from the vine that it's attached to. A branch on its own is dead and it can't produce anything. You need to be connected to the source, the vine, Jesus. That if you are connected to him, he'll give you all you need, including joy. That you have to stay connected to the vine. And that if you remain connected, you will produce much fruit. There is so much in that passage for us that we could spend, hours and days on that. And all those things are worth unpacking. But this morning, I just wanted to focus on verse 11, that last verse that we read. Because it's in verse 11 that Jesus gives us this promise. He says, I've told you this, all this stuff about needing to be connected to me. I've told you this. Why? So that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. That's why he's told us all that stuff. You've got to stay connected to me. Why? Because then you'll be filled with joy. If you want a life that is filled to overflowing with joy, that deep, satisfying kind of happiness that keeps going, you need to be properly connected to Jesus. Now that's a bit revolutionary, I think. Jesus has a completely different view of what will produce joy. He's saying that joy doesn't come from your outward circumstances. It doesn't even come from you. It comes from being connected to him. That's what allows you to be joyful in the face of whatever your circumstance is. In Matthew 6:33, Jesus says that instead of seeking your own happiness and needs first, we're to put him first, him and his kingdom. What a massive irony. In order to find the happiness we seek, we have to give up pursuing happiness. We're not even to seek joy. What we need to do is give up focusing on ourselves and what we want, and we need to focus our whole lives on Jesus, seeing the world in the way that Jesus sees it, and ordering our life the way Jesus chooses for it to be ordered. When we do that, that's when we experience our true identity as a person of value and worth. Our life takes on purpose and meaning beyond ourselves. When we do that, once we've got that, we can experience the joy that we've been looking for all along, that deep, satisfying, lasting happiness of joy, not because life is great, but because we face life with Jesus. One of the things that is promised when we're connected to Jesus is joy. It sits alongside other biblical attitudes like contentment, gratitude, peace. Joy is one of the fruit of the Spirit. Jesus was talking about that in John 15. Fruit is what comes naturally when you live connected to the vine. We don't have to pursue joy for its own sake. It will come naturally out of our connection with Jesus. Joy is evidence of Jesus in us. Regardless of what you're going through, good and bad, if you've got joy, that's evidence that Jesus is in you. It's what allows you to face things that are tough. So, if you want more joy in your life, pursue Jesus more. It's that simple. Spend more time with him. Develop your relationship with him. Be obedient to him. Let him change your perspective on your life. And as he's promised, your joy will overflow. So back to our exercise this morning. Do this. Happiness, joy, right? Happiness is when I'm looking at this circumstance, this little thing, I'm trying to get joy out of it. Joy is when I let Jesus show me the whole perspective, everything that I have, the presence of God in my life that gives me a whole other way of looking at the world. And when I can see who Jesus is, what he's done for me, what he will continue to do for me, That's where the joy comes from. So you can live life narrow, or you can live with God's perspective. Right? Got it? That's all the exercise I'll be requiring of you today. Understanding where joy comes from has been a huge lesson for me, because I am by nature a task-focused person. I'm a to-do list kind of person. Ask my children. I give to-do lists to them, should they not be able to work out their own. Do you know, biologists tell us that there are 4 kinds of naturally occurring happiness chemicals that we can access, right? So there's oxytocin, the love hormone. I don't need to tell you about that one. There are endorphins, which are the painkillers. Every time I go for a run, when I start, my hips hurt. By the time I get back, I'm fine, right? That's the endorphins. There's serotonin, which is the mood stabilizer. Some of us need a little more of that. And then finally, there is dopamine, the reward chemical. Every time I tick off an item in my to-do list, I'm basically giving myself a little dopamine hit. Woohoo, yay me. And there's genuinely, this joy, this is real. Right? There's genuine joy for me to get to the end of a list, or even one little item. I have a massive to-do list at work. I've had to divide it up into days, and it's starting to creep into weeks now of things that need to be done. It is easy for me to fall into the trap of thinking that if I just get everything done, if everything is planned and life is basically under control and predictable, then I'm going to be happy and content. Of course, that can never happen, because I'll always find more things that need doing. Ask Darren, he'll tell you. And of course, life is anything but predictable. But it doesn't matter, because it turns out that even if I could make that happen, it wouldn't make me happy. Because after my little dopamine hit, I realised there's still more on my tick list that needs doing. As it turns out, what I need is to be connected to Jesus. And he will bring his perspective. And it's then that I will experience genuine joy, regardless of where my tick list is up to and regardless of my current circumstances. My joy doesn't come from having my life organised and all my circumstances under control. It comes from having the Holy Spirit alive in me. So I want to be really clear this morning that being connected to Jesus doesn't make your life perfect. But then on the flip side, I don't want to be suggesting that being connected to Jesus puts you into some kind of eternal denial where you don't realise or just ignore the hard stuff of life. Life comes with its challenges, right? Life comes with really difficult circumstances. We saw it yesterday. And some circumstances last for a really long time, and sometimes they're really hard. We're not in denial about that. What I'm saying is that having Jesus allows you to live with genuine joy, regardless of whether your circumstances are great or awful. Because the source of joy is Jesus himself. His salvation, his presence in your life, his power, his perspective, his guarantee to be with you and to bring you blessing. Joy doesn't always make logical sense. Happiness comes from circumstance, so it makes sense to be happy when your circumstances are good. But you can have joy, real, deep, genuine joy in any circumstance. You know, I could tell you plenty of stories, and I've told you some from this platform, where you might see no reason for me to have joy. And yet, I do have joy because I see my circumstances through the lens of Jesus. I can see where Jesus has brought me through difficulties. I can see where God has grown me and increased my faith and made me more of a Christ-like person as a result of the challenges. I've seen how God has transformed me. I've experienced his love for me, his faithfulness, and his presence brings me genuine joy, whatever I'm facing. Do you know, when I hit my 50s, there must have been some kind of like old person hormone that gets released in your body. And it caused me, people are laughing, they're going, wait till your 60s and 70s, Karen. it caused me to start kind of revisiting my life stories and all the things that had happened to me, good and bad. And, you know, whenever I didn't have something on my mind, which is not often because I'm always thinking about something, but, you know, my mind would just drop into this kind of reverie of things that had happened across my life. And I have to tell you, it knocked me around a bit because there's been plenty to overcome in my life. And it was sometimes painful and sometimes depressing to revisit those circumstances. And it got to the point where I actually just started dwelling in this sense that my life has been one long struggle. And I was feeling really defeated and really negative and frankly a bit tired from the battle, right? One constant battle after another after another. And maybe you can identify with that. Maybe for some of you that's been your experience too. But there came a point where I had to just pull myself aside and remind myself that for every one of those tough circumstances, God had helped me overcome that. God had helped me through that. Every single one of those. Actually, there's a victory story to tell. It's not a sad, hopeless, bad story to tell. It's despite that, God worked through that and helped me to overcome it. Every single time. By the grace and power of God, those things are no longer who I am today. They're part of my story, but they're part of my story of how powerful God is. My story is not how hard has my life been. My story is how powerful God has been throughout my life in his ability to transform people. My life is not a series of terrible things. My life is a testimony to the power of God to overcome. And you know, that story continues today. Some of you would know that I had a bit of a run-in with cancer last year. And praise God, after a number of operations, I'm cancer-free today. And I have every hope that I will stay well. A number of people, particularly where I work, which is not a Christian place to work, they've expressed their surprise at how positive I've been and how I've been able to undertake my health journey with such positive energy and gratitude. I've been told I'm stoic. I've been told I'm amazing. I've been asked, how do you do that? But it's not because I'm amazing that I've been able to do that. It's not that it hasn't been hard and sometimes scary. It's just that I have felt genuinely grateful for so many aspects of that journey. I'm really grateful for the early detection of that cancer that allowed it to be treated early. I'm grateful for the fact that I've had choices about how I want to approach that treatment. I'm grateful for the family who have loved me and cared for me through that. My boys have got really good at lifting stuff and moving things for me. I'm grateful for a workplace that has given me time off. There has been so much to be grateful for in that journey, honestly. And just before I went in for my first surgery late last year, I was feeling pretty daunted, and I kind of did my last run. I did my last 5K run and went, don't know if I'm going to be able to do that ongoing, but I'm doing my run the night before the surgery so I can feel, get the hips working and whatever. But as I was sitting there, and I had to sit in a little cubicle for 8 hours waiting for the surgeon to come and get me. They got stuck on a few other cases, so I was there for quite a while. And I wrote these things down to remind me about what is so about my life. And it was a conversation with me and God, and I wrote this. God, you brought me into being. You see me, and you are with me. I am not alone. That was really powerful for me. And it made all the difference. Because whatever happens from here, God loves me. He knows exactly where I'm at, and he is with me. And if that's not a reason to be joyful in the midst of my circumstances, I don't know what is. The God of heaven loves me, spends time with me, died for me, and helps me to overcome. There's joy in that. When you are connected to Jesus, you have joy that allows you to live beyond your story. The story of your past, the story of your current circumstances, and the story of your future fears. God's joy can be with you through all of that. God has been faithful to you and to me. He's brought me through so much. The older I get, the more he's brought me through. See, there are some benefits to getting older. It means you've got a bigger list of things that God's brought you through. He's taught me to overcome so much. And because of that, I know that he'll continue to bring me through for the rest of my life, whatever that holds. Having Jesus creates joy in me. And it can create joy in you. So the band's going to come and play for us. And I want to give you some time this morning just to stop and consider where you are at with joy. Because I don't want you to go away this morning thinking that happiness is bad. You should enjoy those happy experiences when they come. Don't feel guilty about that. Take them. Just get every bit of ounce of happiness you can out of them. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't build your life around them. Because the joy of the Lord is your strength, regardless of your circumstances. So I would encourage you this morning to pursue Jesus, and you will find joy, deep, lasting, satisfying joy that exists regardless of what else is going on in your life. By understanding your worth and your value and your purpose in Jesus, joy will come. So I don't know where you're at this morning. Maybe you've been pursuing happiness. Yes, right? Maybe that's been your focus. Maybe you're a tick list person, you're looking for security, you're looking for exciting experiences, whatever that is. Well, maybe this morning it's time to change that. Maybe there's something really specific you need to consciously let go of. Something that you've been expecting to bring you happiness, but it's an unrealistic expectation. Maybe you've just been lacking joy because you've allowed your connection with Jesus to get a little bit, less. Maybe you've realised this morning that it's joy you really want and not happiness. It's joy you've been looking for all this time, and that you're ready to begin that relationship with Jesus, or that you're ready to renew that relationship with Jesus and start again. Whatever you're facing into today, wherever you're at, I want to just give you this moment to just stop and think, what is it that I want from life? And if it's joy that you want, then the answer is Jesus. Don't pursue joy, pursue Jesus, and the joy will come. So I want to give you a few minutes. There's a place of prayer open for you here today. You can come and kneel. Someone will pray with you. You can stay in your seat and just pray. You can kneel, you can stand, whatever you want to do. I want to give you some time to pursue Jesus and then get ready for the joy that being in relationship with Him brings. Thank you, guys.